So if you step outside today, Tuesday, February 10th, 2026, I mean, especially if you're anywhere near Chardon or, the snow belt of northern Ohio, you are probably questioning your own sanity.
Oh, completely. It's genuinely disorienting.
Right. I'm looking at the data here, and we're hitting 52 degrees today. But my brain is still stuck last week when we were talking about a historic polar vortex with wind chills at -25
That's a 75-degree swing.
in like 4 days.
It's sensory whiplash. It's the kind of weather that makes you sick if you're not careful.
Exactly. But while I'm complaining about my coat, there's this massive kind of hidden industry in the woods that is looking at this exact thermometer and freaking out.
Freaking out in a good way, though.
In a go, go, go kind of way, yeah.
Oh, absolutely. For us, it's just weird February weather.
Mm-hmm.
For the maple syrup producers in northern Ohio, this is the starting gun.
The starting gun for what you called the most high-stakes heist of the year.
It really is. I think of it as a heist. They have to steal the sugar from the forest before the weather either shuts them down or, ruins the product entirely.
And looking at the stack of reports we have from OSU Extension, local weather, climatological data, this isn't going to be a leisurely stroll.
Oh, this is going to be an absolute sprint.
I love that framing. So we're looking at liquid gold today. But it's more than pancakes. It's biology, fluid dynamics, and apparently an 80-mile crack in the ice on Lake Erie.
That crack is a huge piece of the puzzle.
Okay, let's start there. Because when I read 80-mile crack, I'm picturing a disaster movie. Why does a crack in the lake matter to a guy tapping a tree 20 miles inland?
It all comes down to moisture and the lake effect machine. Usually in a deep freeze like we just had, the lake freezes over, solid. It puts a lid on the water.
Or no evaporation, no snow.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But this winter started so warm that the water underneath that ice is still, relatively warm.
So the ice is just thin.
It's unstable. And that 80-mile fracture means the lid is basically off. Open water is exposed to the air again.
Ah.
So as we get these temperature swings, that open water is just pumping moisture into the atmosphere. It modifies the entire air mass right over the snow belt.
So the trees right there in the snow belt are getting a totally different atmospheric treatment than trees in, say, Columbus.
Precisely. It keeps the moisture levels high, which is critical because, as we saw in the reports, parts of Ohio were in a drought late last year. The trees are thirsty. That open water might be the difference between a good sap run and a dry one.
Okay, so the stage is set. We have a cracked lake, thirsty trees, and this wild temperature swing. You mentioned this is a heist. What makes this specific week starting today the gold standard?
It's the physiology.
Yeah.
It's all about that freeze-thaw cycle. Northern Ohio producers have been sitting on their hands for weeks. Southern Ohio tapped way back in January, but up here, they waited.
Why? I mean, if it was warm enough, why not just tap then?
It was too unstable. If you tap too early, the tap hole can dry out before the main run. You lose your shot. But today is the trigger. We have 52 degrees, but look at tonight.
It's dropping to 29.
That is the perfect setup. Then Wednesday and Thursday, highs in the 20s, snow, then boom, Saturday, Valentine's Day, back to 40.
And then by next Tuesday, the 17th, it's 53.
53, it's a roller coaster.
Up, down, up, and then way up.
And that is exactly what pumps the sap.
Yeah.
If it just stayed 50 for a wick, the sap would run for a day and then just stop. You need the recharge.
Hey, I have to stop you there because I've never really understood this. I know pressure is involved, but a tree is wood. It doesn't have a heart. It doesn't have muscles. How does it pump anything?
It is wild, isn't it? It's actually a physical gas mechanic. Think of the tree like a tire pump or even a lung.
A lung?
Yeah, kind of. Inside the tree, in the xylem, there are these tiny pockets of gas, mostly carbon dioxide trapped in the wood fibers.
Okay.
When the temperature drops below freezing, like tonight, those gases contract. They shrink.
Like a balloon in a freezer.
Exactly that. And because they shrink, they create a vacuum, a negative pressure, suction.
So the tree is literally sucking inward.
It's taking a deep breath, pulling water up from the roots to fill that now empty space. That's the recharge phase. The tree is loading the gun. Then the sun comes up, the temperature hits 40, 45, those gases expand, and the pressure builds up inside the wood.
And it has to go somewhere.
Right. And since we've conveniently drilled a hole in it, that positive pressure pushes the sap out. It's just trying to relieve the pressure.
But wait, if the tree freezes at night, 29 degrees is cold, why doesn't the sap itself freeze solid? Why doesn't the whole tree just become a giant icicle?
That's the coolest part, pun intended, I guess. The sap acts like antifreeze. It's full of sugar. The sugar lowers the freezing point of the water. The tree essentially brines itself to stay alive.
That is incredibly clever. So we're basically harvesting the tree's antifreeze.
Which it made from sunlight last summer. It stored energy.
So we have the mechanism, the pump is working. But not all pumps are equal, right? The notes mention producers are discriminating between tree types.
Oh, sugar makers are definitely snobs about species.
Mm.
You want the sugar maple or the black maple, period.
Because they just have more sugar.
A lot more. A sugar maple might give you sap that's, say, 2% sugar, which sounds low, right?
Yeah.
But compared to a red maple or a silver maple, which might be 1%, or even less,
Does that 1% really make a difference? You're just going to boil it anyway.
it makes a massive difference in labor and fuel. There's this thing called the rule of 50. Generally, it takes 40 to 50 gallons of sap from a sugar maple to make 1 gallon of syrup.
50 gallons of water boiled off for 1 gallon of syrup. That already seems wildly inefficient.
Now imagine you tapped a red maple, you might need 60, 70,
Yeah.
even 80 gallons of sap for that same gallon of syrup.
Oh, wow.
That's hours more boiling.
Yeah.
It's way more firewood or fuel.
Right.
It changes the whole economic equation.
So you're hunting for the high-octane trees.
You are. And this year, with the drought history in the region, those sugar contents might be a little weird. Stress trees can do unpredictable things.
Let's go back to the heist idea. You said this week is the gold standard window. But looking at the forecast for next week, Tuesday, February 17th, it looks warm. Suspiciously warm.
That is the villain of our story. That is the threat.
53 degrees.
53 degrees is dangerous territory. See, sap is sterile inside the tree.
Okay.
But the second it hits the spile, the tubing, the bucket,
Yeah.
it meets the real world. And the real world is full of bacteria.
And bacteria loves sugar.
Loves it. We're talking organisms like Gluconostoc or Bacillus.
Yeah.
The temperature's in the 30s, they're basically asleep. But once you cross 45, and definitely once you hit 50,
Mm-hmm.
they wake up and start a party.
And what happens? The sap just tastes bad.
It's worse. It turns wrong. Producers call it sour sap. The bacteria eat the sucrose, and it can make the syrup cloudy or give it an off flavor. But in the worst case scenario, if you have a big plastic tank sitting in 53-degree sun, the sap gets ropey.
Ropey. I do not like the sound of that.
It's visceral. It literally turns into slime.
Oh, gross. Seriously?
I'm not kidding. It gets the consistency of snot. If you try to pour it, it doesn't splash. It just creates a string, a rope.
Oh, come on.
And if that happens, you can't boil it. You can't filter it. You just have to open the valve and dump the entire tank on the ground.
That's heartbreaking. That could be hundreds of gallons of work.
Thousands of dollars.
Yeah.
Gone. Just because it got too warm for too long. So that's why next week is terrifying for these guys.
So what do? Put ice in the tanks?
Essentially, yeah. The commercial guys use chiller tanks. Or you just work faster. You cannot let sap sit.
Yeah.
If it flows on Tuesday, it needs to be boiled on Tuesday. You cannot leave it overnight.
It's a race against the Petri dish.
It is. Sleep deprivation is just, part of the industry.
Now, you mentioned that compared to 2024, this year is actually manageable. What happened in 2024?
2024 was the death blow. We had a heat wave in February that hit 70 degrees.
In Ohio in February.
Yep. And that didn't just spoil the sap. It tricked the trees. The trees thought, oh, it must be May. And they physically started to bud out.
And that's bad.
Once those buds swell, the chemistry inside the tree changes. It stops producing sugar and starts making bitter compounds for leaf growth. Game over. The whole season ends.
So 53 degrees is scary for bacteria, but 70 is like an extinction level event for the season.
Exactly. We can survive 53 if we're clean and fast. We cannot survive 70.
Let's shift gears to the GUE itself, the equipment. Because reading the OSU guidelines, this has all changed so much. I remember field trips seeing galvanized buckets hanging off trees. That's not really the game anymore, is it?
Not for the serious producers.
Mm-hmm.
The bucket method is nostalgic, for sure, but it's inefficient. A modern sugar bush looks more like a hospital ICU.
With all that blue tubing everywhere.
Miles of it. And it's under vacuum. That's the key distinction. We aren't just letting gravity drip the sap out. We're hooking a vacuum pump to the tubing and actively pulling the sap out of the tree.
Does that hurt the tree?
It can actually be better if it's done right, because you get more yield from a much smaller hole. The industry has moved to these tiny 516-inch spiles.
That's really small. Why the change?
It's all about the wound. Tabbing's surgery, right? You're drilling a hole in a living thing.
Right.
The tree's immediate reaction is to heal that wound. A smaller hole just heals faster. But the equipment really matters, too. The reports all emphasize using sharp drill bits.
A sharp bit versus a dull bit, what's the difference?
If your bit is dull, you're not cutting the wood, you're friction burning it. You actually cauterize the wood fibers as you drill.
So you're sealing the pipe before you even start?
You got it. You glaze the inside of the hole, and the sap can't get out. It's a rookie mistake that can cost you half your harvest.
I want to touch on something you mentioned earlier, this idea of a ghost industry. The notes say the official government stats for Ohio maple syrup are way off. Like, they're missing half the picture. Why?
This is one of the most fascinating parts of the Ohio scene. You look at the USDA census, it says production is stagnant.
Yeah.
But then you talk to equipment dealers, and they're selling record amounts of tubing, evaporators. The numbers just don't match up.
So who are these mystery syrup makers?
A huge portion of it is the Amish community, especially in Geauga and Holmes counties. You have to picture this. You're driving down a back road, you see a horse and buggy, and then you look into the woods. You might see a team of horses pulling a collection tank.
Right. Very 1800s.
But then you look closer at the trees. They often have the most advanced high-vacuum tubing systems in the state, powered by a diesel generator tucked away in a shed.
Wow.
It's this incredible blend of old-world lifestyle and cutting-edge ag tech.
But they're not filling out online government surveys?
Generally, no. They fly under the radar. So the official statistics completely ignore this massive chunk of the economy. It's a multi-million-dollar industry that's largely off the books.
That is wild. A shadow economy of sugar.
And it drives the culture. We have these festivals coming up, like the Geauga County Maple Festival, but there's a real irony there, too.
The timing, right. It's in late April.
Late April.
By then, the trees have full leaves on them.
Oh, the season's long dead by then. The sap stopped running 6 weeks before. They're celebrating a memory. It's a holdover from a century ago when winters were longer. Now, the festival's basically a post-game party.
Speaking of the end of the game, how do they know when it's really over? We talked about the bud swelling, but is there, like, a taste test?
There is. It's the buddy flavor.
Buddy sounds nice. Like,
But
hey, buddy.
It sounds friendly, but it is the kiss of death. It tastes like. The best description is bitter butterscotch.
Bitter butterscotch. I feel like a mixologist in Brooklyn could probably make that work in a cocktail.
Maybe in a cocktail, yeah. But on a waffle, it's awful. It's metallic and just weird. It happens because the tree's metabolism shifts. It stops pushing sugar and starts pushing nitrogen and amino acids to build the leaves.
And that creates the funk?
Those chemicals react in the boiler and create that off flavor. Once you taste that, you pull all the taps. It's over.
And looking at the long range past this bacterial danger week, when do we think that happens this year?
The sugar moon, which is the full moon in March, is usually the signal. But this year, looking at the climate models, we're predicting an early exit, maybe March 15th to the 20th.
So we really only have a month.
If we're lucky, yeah.
So to bring this all back to today, February 10th, the sun is out, ice is cracking on the lake, vacuum pumps are humming. What is the big takeaway here?
I think the takeaway is that we're watching a collision. We're watching a rigid calendar. Our festivals, our traditions, collide with a rapidly changing climate. The trees don't care that it's February. They respond to thermal triggers.
And those triggers are getting weird.
They're getting erratic. But for this week, despite the weirdness, despite the warm lake and the bacterial threat, the sap is flowing. Nature's doing its thing.
We just have to be quick enough to catch it.
Exactly.
So if you're eating pancakes next month, just remember that syrup wasn't just tapped. It was stolen in a high-speed chase between a polar vortex and a bacterial heat wave.
And filtered for slime. Don't forget the slime.
I was trying to forget the slime. Thanks for listening to this deep dive. Good luck to the sugar makers out there. Keep it cold, keep it clean. We'll see you next time.